Get ready for the Work Better podcast. I'm Tori McQueen, here to share stories on what's working and what's not in business and in life from humans all over the world. I believe everyone's version of success looks different, but in the end, we should all love our life's work, and in doing so, live a life of complete fulfillment. And if you don't love your work, I'm hoping you'll tune in and uncover some inspiration here to work better. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the podcast. I cannot believe we are already here in May. Especially here in Oregon, it's so pretty right now. But honestly, I joke with family that we are literally allergic to winter and spring. So with May being here, it brings on so many amazing things, and we cannot wait for school to get out and for all the things to happen this summer and all of the things. But I wanted to touch on this topic of mental health, as it is actually Mental Health Awareness Month, if you don't already know. So I wanted to touch on that. Now, before all of you think enough already, we all know it exists. I thought I would share my thoughts on this topic, but specifically pertaining to my thoughts on mental health as a parent and raising mentally healthy kids, since I believe it is such an important piece to be aware of as a parent to 5 children. And oftentimes I see people talk or discuss mental health and how it's a huge thing where, especially now on social media, many millennials are coming out and discussing their traumas from their childhood and how it impacts them and why now it affects them and they can't do certain things or they're having to backtrack. And that seems to be trending. And it's so trendy that it's kind of, festering in the online space. And although I won't touch on what I think about those trends in this episode, I feel it leaves a parent like myself to wonder, how can I make sure to be completely aware and prevent my children from feeling this way as well? I always wonder, where on the path is it that kids start to feel anxiety or depression or lackluster for life or pure sadness outside of little moments that are of the norm? Where do those feelings just start to just take over? And, I often think this when I see someone on the side of the road, but understanding that that person has a story and they were once a 7-year-old. Like, what was their life like? Like, where did mental health start to take over? And the reality is, we aren't in control of how our kids really feel at all. We cannot prevent our kids from everything. However, we are in control of how we empower our children to be mentally tough and emotionally capable of loving themselves and others. I believe that if they can really get in tune with themselves, then they will be able to cope and deal with whatever journey they decide to take themselves on, which is the goal, right? Raising humans that are strong, kind, loving, and capable to power through all the ups and downs that will come their way. Because we all know there will be a ton. We cannot control that. And to still love and honor themselves and others in the end. Now, before we dive in, full disclosure, you guys, I am no parenting expert here, and I even sometimes don't want to talk about the parenting topic just because it is such a personal thing for so many people. And my kids range from 2 to 11 years old. I feel I am just at the very beginning of our parenthood journey, but I still thought I would share what my husband and I focus on as parents to do what we can. We feel has been going pretty well for us this far. And of course, we are pretty open-minded and agile to change things as we learn new things or as we start feeling like things just aren't working. But for now, I wanted to kind of share the 5 ways we focus to be proactive and mindful of mental health as a parent to raise mentally healthy children. So I'll show you these things that have been working for us. Also, keep in mind, there are several studies that I have read and consumed over the years that have inspired me to do these 5 things or focus on these 5 things. But overall, it has been based on a lot of maternal and paternal instincts from myself and James, in addition to these studies, right? So let's dive in. Number 1, we really like to focus on keeping them socially engaged. I think that keeping the kids social and engage is so important for their mental health, especially after periods of isolation with COVID and the pandemic. There are so many benefits in different articles. And of course, we'll tag some different articles in the show notes, but it helps with the development of communication skills, empathy for others, emotional regulation. But also, the thing with keeping them socially engaged is understanding that each child has different needs for social engagement. Like, out of all of our kids, like, some of our kids definitely crave more social environments and can be go, 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 go. And other kids of ours can be more homebodies and they're more simple and they would rather have two good friends than a whole room of people. And they actually get more stimulation from being home and with family instead of being in large groups of people. Introvert, extrovert, however you want to put it. So, that being said, let me share some things that we do to ensure social engagement for our kids. First off, like, we go above and beyond to make sure to schedule play dates at a young age. And I say play dates in quotation marks because it's kind of silly when you call them play dates, but all the kids seem to call them that these days. But purposefully, intentfully doing play dates with kids that have other great parents or that are good kids for our kids is important to us. And just overall, kids that our kids like. If they feel happier and laugh and can play well with certain kids, like, we want to arrange those play dates for them when we can. And also engage with those parents as well to kind of create an ecosystem that supports the child. And again, every kid is so different. And as much as we can control who our kids are friends with, it's of course up to you to decide what kids you want your kids to hang out with. But to a certain extent, I do feel like your kids will tell you who they want to have playdates with, who they best engage with. And when we say engage we look for positive engagement. Like, kids who they can laugh about things that are good for them. They can have fun, they can be risky, they can talk about things that are silly or things that fuel them. They don't need to talk about other people. They don't need to down other people. And they make them better, happier people. And at a young age, it's hard to determine that. So really, you just kind of follow who they're fun. But that's a long-winded answer as to how we arrange play dates. We stay involved. We get involved in the classroom so we know, and in sports and volunteer as coaches so we can see the different types of kids and how they behave and who would be good friends for play dates. And some kids, on sports don't go to the same school, so they don't have the capability to play at school, but maybe seeking outside arrangements to, play on the weekends or do other things. We have to seek that out as parents. So if we see kids that have good families that are good for our kid and our kids like them, then we have to make those arrangements. Also, family engagements, going and seeing family, making time for cousins, like all of that. A dedicated time for our family to engage at home is also super important because we have the privilege of having multiple children. That has helped out a lot because any given day, our kids are constantly being socially engaged. And that's what we wanted for our family. So anytime we're doing family dinners or cooking meals or riding bikes or having game nights or playing outside even, our kids are practicing social engagement and they are they're with people. I believe that we are humans that need other people, and I think it does a lot for their mental health and to keep them stimulated in that way. And again, learning communication skills, empathy, and emotional regulation with others, I think, has been such a benefit to keeping them socially engaged. Of course, they're in sports, other activities with kids, but that being said, social engagement. Okay. Number two, limiting screen time. Ooh, and I hate using the word screen time, but again, everybody uses it, so then people know what I'm talking about. This is TV, phones, iPad, things like that. Anything on a screen, digital stuff, video games, all of that. We really, really try to limit it. Obviously, we're not one that wants to always talk about screen time because we believe that the more you talk about it and you make it a thing, that's when the kids seem to then make it a thing also. And then it's like, it doesn't need to be a thing, really. It just is habits, right? So obviously, there are so many articles, and you can look them up now on discussing the impact of excessive screen time on mental health, especially with a focus on increased screen time during the pandemic. The risk, it all impacts willpower, mood, sleep disruption, decreased physical activity, social isolation. There are so many things, focus, depression, anxiety, all the things. And the biggest thing for us is we totally know a difference with our kids if they have had a rainy day here in Oregon and we let them play video games for an extended period of time on the weekend. Oh, that night or next day, like emotional disaster. And we like to say emotional damage. If you guys haven't seen any of those videos, it's so hilarious. But they get it, like, they're an emotional wreck. They can't take a no, you tell them to turn it off, they turn into monsters, and in chatting with teachers and therapists and doctors, I mean, it goes right alongside with diet, right? Diet and exercise and sleep. Screen time affects sleep. If kids are watching TV too late, they're overstimulated, they can't shut down and sleep. So, really, what we try to do for that is really limit screen time, especially during the week. Our kids are already really busy in extracurricular activities like sports or piano or anything else. And by limiting screen time for us Monday through Friday, aside from Friday evenings, because I don't have school on Saturdays, but Monday through, let's say, Friday day, and then evening we can turn it on, but school days mostly, um, it has been an extreme help because not only does it help with their mood and focus in school, but it also allows us for more time as a family because or as siblings because they come from for school in the afternoon and then they can just get in the zone and play before dinner or go off to sports. So there's not much time anyways during the week, but it just helps us stay on schedule and on routine for the things that we need to do also. And again, it helps them sleep, it helps them focus in school. So that has been a major help for us. The other thing too is no screen time before 7 a.m. Like the kids want to wake up early and they want to go be the first to play a video game or something. And we allow video games, like that's fine, in moderation. We believe in everything in moderation and mostly, building habits that they can control. But 7 a.m., nothing before 7 a.m. You don't need to rush to the TV to turn it on. So that has really helped too, because then eliminating it during the weeks, and then here comes Saturday and Sunday, they can't like wake up super early just to get on it, right? The other thing too is they there's so many of them that they have to rotate what each other wants. So they have different interests. So because we have one TV in the living room, well, we also have one in our room, but one in the living room, they have to take turns picking what they want. So they're working together, they're figuring out what they want. So that also really helps limit some screen time. We don't own iPads or anything like that. We never really have. One of our kids has, I think it's a Kindle or a Amazon Fire that he uses for some things, but other than that, we just never really got in the habit of getting them iPads. And so limiting it during the week and then limiting it a little bit on the weekends. And also, our weekends are so busy with sports and friends and other activities that when they are home to be able to watch it because they're allowed to, we're just not home very often for them to do that. So there's that, right? So that helps limit some of that there. So that's been great. And honestly, their mood has been way better. And any time that I feel like their mood has adjusted because, here in Oregon, we have so many rainy days that sometimes it's nice on the weekends to just stay inside, turn on a movie, things like that. And if I notice that I'm giving them too much video game time or things like that, I will definitely pay for it later because kids will start to get whiny, their mood just changes, they don't wanna take a no because it's so hard. Like, those when those addictive traits start coming out, I basically have to limit it longer, almost without them even knowing. I don't even have to say anything. I just in my head are like, okay, keep them away from the screens for a while. And it totally impacts them, you guys. So if you haven't already set some boundaries around screen time, and again, you don't need to discuss screen time with them because I think it does make it a little bit like awkward. And I think that they catch on to you and then you make it a bigger deal than it needs to be. But if you just practice the habits of it, then you will notice the difference in just a day if you do that. The other huge thing is social media. So, again, my kids are 11 and a half and younger. My oldest is going to be going into sixth grade. So, a lot of talk on cell phones and social media has been a thing in our community, or at least I've been trying to do tons of research on it just to know what is the best thing to do. But I recently read a new study about adolescents and the impact from social media on their mental health. And the huge correlation, I mean, I'm sure everybody already knows that there's quite a bit of negative impact on mental health. But the huge correlation that stuck out to me was that a lot of it comes down to the parents' use and their habits with social media as a key factor in how children and adolescents are impacted. So, in the study that I'll put in the show notes, it basically said that one of the pillars that they chose to study was if parents use social, how that impacts not just the parents' behaviors, but the mental health on the others. And I think it has to do a lot with also the engagement that the parent has with the kids if they're on social media too much. So not only do the adolescents see their parents' usage of social media and on their devices and screen time, they are affected by it because parents are focused on that and not focused on their kids or other relations in the house. So I thought that was super interesting. Obviously, it makes sense, but that is something that brought so much more awareness to myself because then I'm like, okay, wait, I already don't really watch TV in front of them. I just let them pick what they want. I don't ever really sit down with that, but I do work a lot on my phone. I do spend time on social media to study others, but then also post sometimes, I talk with my team on Slack on my phone. I do deals and transactions in real estate through my phone, talk to my team through my phone. So my phone is with me a lot. And truth be told, I would rather not have my phone on me at all. Everybody who knows me in person knows that. And I try really hard not to even touch my phone when I'm on vacation or when I'm with a group of people. But what you forget is I am with my children quite a bit, and at home, the kids do get the brunt of it. If I'm cooking dinner, the kids might be playing, but I might be cooking dinner and I might also be, posting something or looking at something or engaging with someone else, not just through social media, but also through text message and other moms and communicating with other people while I'm making dinner. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it does go to show that, okay, if I'm looking at my phone, the kids don't know whether I'm watching YouTube, whether I'm talking to a neighbor, whether I'm negotiating a deal, whether I'm responding to, something from my team, whether I'm planning, a trip to Disneyland, booking flights, they don't know what I'm doing on my phone, right? So, as much as a study says, oh, social media impacts, I also relate it to just being on your phone in general because kids don't understand all the time what you're looking at. They just see that you're looking at something else, which means you're not engaging with them, which means they're learning habitually to also want to look at something else instead of be present. So that is something that has really impacted how I do work and how I've adjusted how I do things. I even opened up, a conversation with a couple of my older sons about my use of my phone because I am home. I have the luxury of being with my kids a lot and doing things with them. But with that being said, I do a lot of work on my phone via Slack. I'm a remote employee or a self-employed person. So I can do a lot of work from my phone. And I've asked them, like, hey, how do you guys think about being on my phone? Like, do you understand that it's for work? And they say, you know what, mom, we don't really know what you're doing, but when we try to talk to you and ask you something, sometimes it looks like you're just ignoring us and looking at something on your phone. And then when I ask you again, you look at me and you get frustrated because you're in the middle of a negotiation. And I looked at him and I was like, you know what? What would be better? What do you think would be better? Would you rather me be gone all day and then come back and not have my phone? Or would you rather? And he goes, well, actually, kinda. I would rather you go up in your room in your office anytime you have a work call so that we know, because then we can be quiet and then we can, not bother you. But when you're with us, we don't know if you're looking up a recipe or if you're talking to somebody in an important conversation via text or posting something. We don't know any of that. So we'd rather, if it's important, that you go to your room so we don't bother you. And I thought that was it was like a smack in the face at first, but then I was like, oh my gosh, thank you for telling me that. And also, you guys, I know they're kids. They can suck it up, right? Like they can, in my generation, it's like, who cares what you want? It's up to the parents what we do and you can suck it up. Kind of how I was raised. But really in my head, I'm like, you know what? That makes sense. If they're seeing me on my phone working, they don't know a difference whether I worked 4 hours that day and it's in front of them or 10 hours that day and it's away from them. It's almost better that I'm just not seen on it, right? Anyways, so that study really hit me. And so screen time there has been huge for me to make sure that I'm not doing screen time in front of them as much as I can. So I'm going to my office if I need to have a conversation, or telling my husband I'm stepping out. Because the last thing I need is for my 2-year-old daughter and my other kids to look at me all the time as if I'm not engaging with them and I'm in screen time. Because again, like the study shows, it's a key factor in how children, adolescents are impacted with their mental health, which is so interesting, right? But it makes sense. And I'm like, gosh darn it. Okay. So, mental note, back away from my phone, even if I'm working on it, even if I'm chatting with my mom on it, even if I'm chatting with my best friend and planning a play date, all the things, try to not do it in front of them as much. So there's that. Whew, that was long winded. Okay, let's get on to number 3. Challenge them to do hard things. My husband and I are so much about this. We think it teaches so much importance in resilience and facing challenges for mental growth, especially after the pandemic's disruptions and all of that, which I can't believe I'm even still talking about it, but it does impact some of these children. I think it helps them with problem solving skills, confidence, and perseverance. My husband and I really try hard to have them do hard things so that they can learn how to do that on their own when we are no longer there to help them every day. So, here are some of the ways we encourage our children to take on challenges, because we think by taking on challenges, they're doing something they wouldn't normally do, and it's pushing them past their comfort zone. So, we do this by setting random, realistic goals for them and then providing support and then celebrating their efforts over their outcomes, right? Because it's really down to the effort that they put in to try to reach their goals. So, this can be anything from like a school fundraiser to, getting more playing time on the ball field or however they want to do it, right? Like, for instance, right now, my son Emery, he decided to take on a challenge of doing sprints 100 days in a row. And so we have a little incline in front of our house, and it's about maybe a 40-yard sprint. And he does them like 5 times in a row. And he's been doing them for like, I think we're on day like 20 something in a row. I'd have to go look, but he's been marking it off every day. And he doesn't want to give it up. He's had sleepovers with friends and he makes sure he does them. We've gone camping with friends and he makes sure he gets up and he does them. And it's just so fun to watch. And for him, it's not about us pushing him to do it, but we do ask him, hey, you didn't do your sprints today. Are you going to do it or are you going to give it up? And he doesn't want to give it up. And that is so fun to see. And the reason he started doing these sprints is because, we were talking about how as he moves along in youth sports, like mom and dad cannot be there to talk about playing time. We cannot be there to talk to coaches about what he can do better. That is his journey, and that is going to be his responsibility and his job to ensure that he works hard to stand out no matter what. Because obviously, every kid actually has different circumstances, and the only thing that he can control is standing out. And so that was kind of one of the things where he's like, okay, if I run a fast sprint, but if I don't look fast, then I need to get faster. So the only way to get faster is to do what other kids aren't doing. Okay, no other kid is going to sprint for 100 days to get better. So he's going to sprint for 100 days to get better. That's where that came from. And, we always challenge him like, hey, if you want to be better than your neighbor or another kid, then you have to do things that others aren't willing to do. And that's what started that. And we've actually been pleasantly surprised that he's kept doing it. And, the thing about doing hard things is that it's contagious. We've learned that it's contagious. Our other son that is younger than him started wanting to wake up at 5:30 in the morning to do it with him. That he didn't want to miss out. He wanted to get better also. So that instead of competing with each other, now they're both getting better and they're pushing each other and they're holding each other accountable. And I do them and my husband does them. And not only that, it like allows us all to bond together by doing something hard, right? It's something we wouldn't normally do. So that has been great. So we always challenge them to do hard things. And if they're not doing something hard, then they're not really learning anything else new and they're not stretching that muscle. It's much like a workout. And it's funny because Jet, one of my younger kids, so he's my fourth son, he's 5 years old, well, almost 5 years old. And the thing that's so hard for him is waiting. Anytime I ask him to be patient, he's like, waiting is so hard. Being patient is hard. Like, it is such a challenge for him. And it's so funny because it really is. Even us as adults, we have a hard time being patient, let alone this new generation that has everything at their fingertips. It is really hard to be patient. So we've been working on, okay, what can we do to make it a little easier? What can we think about? Or, it'll be worth it when you wait, right? You don't need to be whining the whole time. So that is something he's working on. Cade works on his music on the piano. Learning new songs is hard. He gets frustrated, and sometimes I have to tell him, hey, walk away. Like, he puts too much pressure on himself. And I'm like, listen, like, no one's keeping score here. You walk away and you come back and you keep at it. And the little things that you do on a consistent basis that challenge you are going to make you that much better in the end. But really, it's about learning more about themselves. I mean, Brooks, my other son, he's working on being patient with his younger brother because they're hitting different age dynamics. And you know that how the little brother always wants to be with the bigger brother. And now he's kind of switched roles and he's the bigger brother in this instance. And so he's learning more patience to do that, but also reading more challenging books. He loves to read. So giving him things that are challenging to read, but also engaging to read that he likes is key. And I really think it fosters a growth mindset. And we like to emphasize the idea that abilities and talents can be developed through effort and perseverance. So we really like to encourage our kids to view challenges as opportunities for growth rather than indicators of their worth. Like, they are already worthy how they are. They are worthy and capable of doing whatever they want to do, right? But they have to be willing to go through the growth of putting forth the effort and having the perseverance to get there, right? Like, we're not judging them on whether they won or not, but they're going to be judging themselves on whether they can have that or not. Because if they're not willing to get through the effort and perseverance, then they're not going to feel that they're worthy of having that. So working through that is huge for us. And just reminding them that they aren't supposed to start out great at something, right? Like, there's natural ability, but really starting out great at something is not very common. It takes work. So you have to work. And I think in young kids these days, like, kids just don't want to work. And even business owners that I chat with, they say, it's so hard to find kids that want to work or employees that want to work. So, really stressing the importance of effort and choosing to get better if they want to get better is the key. I also want to share something that I recently came across. I don't know if you guys know who Mark Rober is, but he's a former NASA and Apple engineer who now owns Crunch Labs. And he's a YouTuber. He inspires kids all over the world to be creative and spark ingenuity. And he discusses the Super Mario effect. If you haven't heard it already, you can look it up. But I think it's such a brilliant way of explaining it to kids. He did a study with his followers, and one group, he basically said to keep to try to code something until they got it. Like, it was a coding challenge, and so one group, he said, "Hey, try to code this until you get it." They start out with 200 points or a certain amount of points, which are really just made up points. They have no value, right? But if they tried something and they failed, they didn't lose any of those points. And then the other group, he's told them that, "Hey, you start out with these 200 points or points, which really have no value. It's not like they get any like merchandise or any product or anything, but they say, hey, you get these points, and each time you failed, you'd lose a couple points." And he found that even though the points were completely bogus, the group that didn't get points taken away while they were trying were like 70, I think it was 17% or something like that, more likely to continue to try. So I thought that was interesting. So people who understood or had the mindset that, hey, I really have nothing to lose here. If I just keep failing and then just keep trying, I'll get it eventually. They had a little bit more grit to get there. Whereas the people who felt like, oh, after each failed attempt, I'm losing, 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 it dug themselves in a hole to where they just gave up. Right. So, like in Mario, kids don't just quit after one failed attempt, right? They repower up and they get a new life and they continue to try until they beat the level. So, if kids can just focus on making it fun and gamifying their life, it makes dealing with the hard things a little more bearable. So, I thought I'd share that with you guys because I found that as a little useful study and analogy to share with the kids. Hey there, friends. Are you in business and wanting to get more clients over the next 6 weeks? Well, I've got something just for you, the 5831 Method Session and Guide. It's all about simplifying your strategy to attract and close those dream clients. No more guesswork. Think of this as a little one-on-one session with me to figure out the exact strategies to gain those next clients to close. When you jump on board, you'll snag a downloadable guide and step-by-step video session with yours truly, so we can tailor this method to fit your unique business and goals. And imagine this, in just under an hour session, you'll have a custom roadmap ready to roll out over the next 6 weeks. So what are you waiting for? No matter what business you're in, head on over to ToriMcQueen.com/method. That's ToriMcQueen.com/method, or find the link in the show notes to get more clients today. Another thing with having the kids do hard things is that we really try to put them in environments and provide them opportunities for success. So, creating environments where our kids can experience success and build confidence is a priority for us. So, offering different tasks and activities suited to their abilities and interests, gradually increasing the level of challenge as they progress. So, we do this a lot with sports or, piano, just picking new challenges. Um, and if we see any kind of spark of interest in something, then we're out seeking something to help them get better at that. So, if one of my kids likes running, then we set him up for a 5K and he was good at that. So then he enjoyed it. So we set him up for a 10K and he enjoyed that and won a medal. So it's understanding what they are enjoying, but then challenging them to something to continually push them past their comfort zone in that thing that they enjoy. Now, the thing that's key here is interest, right? Because I'll talk about my son Cade and about soccer. Like, he enjoys soccer. He has fun with soccer. He is not the one who enjoys sports as much as my older son, but we are really big on sports because it keeps you healthy and it's usually more fun and engaging in a different way. But my son Cade likes sports for other reasons, and he likes different kinds of sports other than the typical that my husband and I are used to and that our first son enjoys. So it's been challenging for us to find things that he also enjoys, but then to push him past his comfort zone. And, my husband almost forced my son Cade. He was too bored in rec soccer. So we challenged him to do a competitive soccer. And he was just like, oh, it's competitive. I have to commit to being competitive. Nope, not doing it. And for us initially, we're like, no, 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 you will do hard things. You will do this. You will do this and you will not give up and blah, 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 blah. But really, after speaking to my husband about it, we're like, listen, he likes running. Doesn't need to do soccer if he likes running. He could just do more soccer of what he loves. We sat down with Kate and he put together his own plan of what he would rather do to stay fit than soccer. And although it was kind of hard for us because we're like, yeah, but you'll have so much fun. You enjoy it when you're there, but you're just not going. It was hard for us to sit back and let Cade be the leader on his own path, because it really is about their interests. If you're just going to force them into something to be challenged by, it just takes away all the fun for them. So it's kind of a balance of challenging them to do hard things and pushing them outside their comfort zone, but also keeping them happy about it and engaged and feel like they're growing from it and enjoying it. Because once they can start feeling that, hey, me running every day to make myself better is actually sucks to do it, but also so rewarding. But if they really don't have any interest in that specific thing or the reason why they're trying to get better, then they're not going to enjoy it. And then I feel like it will backtrack. Anyways, so I feel like interests are key here. So instead, for Cade, like finding plays that he can be a part of and public speaking are challenges for him because he's a little more introverted, but he enjoys being in a play and he enjoys those things. Or he enjoys creating video games. He's more of like a engineer and enjoys hands-on creating a video game and an obstacle course outside. And so doing that and challenging him in the areas that he already loves has been so great for him, and I think that that is the key here. James and I are also very passionate about this and helping our community youth in the growth mindset mentality, as we feel like so many kids could just thrive in life if they can just have a growth mindset. So, personally, we plan to have some pretty fun projects in the near future that really empower the community and its youth. But with that being said, I'll definitely attach some of the ways to help children and teens learn resilience also in some of the show notes here. Now, number 4, let them fail and take full responsibility for their part and work through it. So, we are all about letting our kids fail. We openly talk about failure. And this is one of the hard ones for me because I feel like as parents, you want to protect them. I have so many friends that want to protect their kids and want to keep them from failure. I just don't think it's going to be great for them, but it's obviously not up to me. So I can only do what I can do for my children. And we openly talk about failure all the time. Like, hey, at the dinner table, it's like, hey, what was your biggest challenge today? Like, where was your challenge? How did you lose? What are you going to do better? What was most fun today? Like in our normal conversations, we talk about our challenges and our failures because honestly, they're going to have them in life. Like the trick is not to not fail. The trick is to learn about your failures and continue to move forward. I mean, failures can be like making mistakes, but it can also be developing grit and it can also be things in relationships, right? Like, hey, you got in a fight with your brother about XYZ because you didn't know how to communicate. Well, admit the part that you did wrong. Have full responsibility for the part that you did do, because usually it takes two, and then learn from it and humble yourself and be able to work through it to make it better, right? Like, so we don't want our kids to be blocked by the failures. We want them to be able to identify the failures, how they failed, and learn to adjust it and grow from it. And most importantly, taking full responsibility. I think that's really, really huge for us. And I'll give you an example of like letting them fail, how we kind of show them that they're capable, but allowing them to fail through the process. We let our kids navigate us through the airports when we go on trips. Now, obviously, you'd have to have patience and enough time to get through the airport, but we literally let them show us, hey, they figure out what airline we're on. They take us through, they get us through the security, they figure out where our plane is. Like, they know how to do that. They pack their own bags on trips. And because I let them pack their own bags, they fail. And guess what? Sometimes they don't pack an extra sweatshirt. And guess what? They have to take full responsibility for not having their sweatshirt, and then they're going to be cold. Is it a lot more work on me? Absolutely. It is on a parent. It's hard. It's very hard, but they learn so much from it. And then they take responsibility for it. And then they feel the repercussions of it. And then they change it. They work through it and they become capable young humans who can do it. And now they all pack their own things when we go camping and when we go on vacation. And do I still like check my 5-year-old's bag? Yes, I have him put it in a bag and then I help him fit it in there. But he's learning. You obviously do it at the level that they are capable, but we are always stretching their limits on because we believe that they are so capable of things. And I just think us parents hold them back from so many things. Just today, even, they said, hey, can I bake this? And I said, yeah, pull up a recipe. They pulled up a recipe. They asked if we had ingredients. They checked the pantry. We needed a couple more things. They went to the store on their bikes and bought the things, and they're baking it as we speak. So, are they capable of sticking together and riding to the store and asking an employee where something is or searching the aisles? Those little things add up without us being over their shoulder. And if they don't have enough money with them, if they have to put something back because they didn't calculate correctly, they are making those miney little failures, and it's not a detriment. It's not a life or death thing that they have to stop and ask an employee, and they don't have mom and dad there to help them make decisions on which one to get. They have to make a decision on what to get and hope that it's the right one. And they might get home and miss an ingredient, and they might have to go back to get the ingredient, and they might have to come back here. And by then it's late, and then they can't make it. And then all the things. They learn from those little minor failures that are not life and death, but they are so capable. And even burning pancakes or burning eggs for the first time, that's how they learn. And so I don't mean to beat a dead horse here, but we let our kids fail. We let them try things. It does take patience. And then also with other things like sports and messing up on the court and doing things like that, we are hard on our kids and the biggest thing that we're hard on is them making excuses for their failures. Like, listen, we don't need an excuse for the failures. You just failed. So it's okay. Like, identify it and let's move along. But the problem with it is when you over make it the end of the world thing when they fail, or you try to protect them from the failures, I think will make it so that their mental health is going to like, what are they going to do when they leave your house? How are they going to handle situations for themselves? If they're going to be hard on themselves, they're going to think every failure is like the end of the world when it's really not. So that's a huge focus for us. And we really try to create a supportive environment for failure. So encouraging the growth mindset again and normalizing mistakes, but it's just offering guidance without interference type of thing. That is what we try to do as parents. We also like to promote self-compassion, so, like, teaching them to be kind to themselves, especially in moments of failure or struggle. They don't need to feel bad about failing or their mistakes, and so that is something that we really try to emphasize, but more importantly, encouraging them to recognize their strengths and their achievements, no matter how small they are, and to treat themselves with the same empathy they would offer to a friend. Would they be mad at a friend for dropping a pass or doing that? And if they wouldn't want someone to be mad at them, they shouldn't get mad at a friend. It's just, we really, really try to reward the effort and not the outcome, like I said previously. And there are so many articles out there on embracing failure and doing that. And I know I talk a lot about that. Same thing with building resilience. I think there are tons of articles out there, but I'll go ahead and link a Harvard study on 5 ways to help children and teens learn how to build resilience, because I think it's so important in us parents, especially nowadays. Life is so easy for us. I feel in America, we have it so good that I feel like sometimes it's easy for us parents to protect them from all the failures. And I just think that it's doing them a disservice. That's an important thing for us as parents to be mindful of their mental health. Number 5, let them have a voice and encourage them to listen to themselves also. So, this is a big one because I was never raised really, getting to have a voice. Like, my opinion was not important. Like, it was really just like, "Hey, what mom and dad say goes. You just do what we say." And I had great parents, but I didn't realize that till I was older that like, "Oh, yeah, maybe that's why sometimes I seek approval." Or that is one thing that I feel like is so important, is encouraging the self-expression. Like, I think it's important to validate our kiddos' feelings and opinions and experiences, even if they differ from ours. It doesn't mean they get their own way, and it doesn't mean they get to treat people a certain way because they feel a certain way, 'cause that's not great either, and I'll touch on that. But creating a safe space for them to express themselves without fear of judgment or rejection is huge for us. And there's a time and a place too, and everybody's learning it, but we are big on having them come to us with their feelings or things that are going on. And sometimes we walk through things out loud with them and they figure out their own solutions most of the time. And also by coming to us and having open communication, they're able to be heard and are also sometimes challenged to support their thoughts or ideas. And we feel it really helps them process and understand their own emotions. Like, even us as parents, we don't fully have our emotions under control. Like, I can admit that. And anyone who does, props to you. It takes work for us parents to even manage our own emotions. But I find that when our kids can come to us or when they're trying to speak their mind about something, then we can really, like, if we listen and we try to get to the bottom of it, sometimes it's not even about the thing that they are emotional about. It's something completely underlying that is there that they self identify as we start to have conversations. For instance, they just often learn something about themselves. Like, it may not have anything to do with what they actually got upset about, but they realized that the cause of their emotions were stemming from somewhere else. And this is how adults are also. But let me give you an example here. So, one of my sons he's like a perfect angel, and I'm not exaggerating. He's got a little people pleaser in him, but he's just so cute, well behaved, sweet, does what we ask. He's smiley, laughs all the time, very kind hearted, nurturing with his siblings, has a lot of compassion, like, fun little kid, great kid. And he had been acting out and he was continuing to have this attitude about things he normally wouldn't be expressing. And it kept escalating. So I was like, okay, you're mad. Like, I get that. But then I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What is going on? Like, talk to me. What's going on? And after listening to him, I pulled him aside and asked him, like, what's really going on? And he kind of started to break it down. And I just kept asking him questions because I was trying to understand. And long story short, we realized he was really missing his older brother who had been gone all day for the past 2 days playing with friends. And they are very close. They're like best friends. But when the age dynamic changes, they shift into different little humans and they start to separate and all of that. But we just realized that he missed his older brother. He wanted to play with his older brother. And it had nothing to do with what I was asking him to, pick up in his room or being upset about. It had everything else to do with he felt like he missed his brother and hasn't had any time to play with his brother. And of course, a lot of questions were asked to get to that, right? But it takes a lot of patience as a parent to sit down and actually like ask it and figure it out. Cause it's very easy to be like, oh my gosh, you're crying again over this and your attitude stinks. Go to your room or whatever you want to do. But oftentimes it has nothing to do with why they're actually upset. It's just their willpower is shot and there's something else that's underlying that's really ticking at them. Sometimes my youngest son gets super emotional and tries to talk it out, and really, all he needs is a hug, you guys. I ask him if he wants a hug because really I'm like, "Oh my gosh, he's so emotional. He's not even making sense right now." So I just say, "Do you need a hug?" And he says, "Yes." And then I hold him as long as he needs to be held, and he just moves on. So he just has big feelings, but letting him express himself and letting him, do all that. Now, a tantrum and being disrespectful and escalating it to those types of attitudes is not okay in our household. We're pretty adamant about it's okay to be mad. It's okay to not be happy about something. It's okay to disagree, but you don't get to treat people a certain way because of how you're feeling. Does that make sense? So if Brooks is upset and having attitude, he can be upset, but to express that attitude towards his other siblings or to express it at me, who has done nothing to him, is not okay. So it's really emphasizing that, yes, you can feel big emotions and do that, but being able to control them and not affect other people is something that we feel like is very important. And so we try to be proactive and mindful and listen to them so that they can process their own emotions. So that way, as they get older, they can become more self aware and they don't have to hide from their emotions or feel like they can't express them. Because I think that has a lot to do with mental health as well. So, when we can talk about their emotions or thoughts together, then it actually helps them communicate, but also helps them identify what they're truly feeling and the actual source of it. And to be quite frank, guys, the source of a lot of their emotions is lack of sleep, diet, exercise, screen time, needing downtime from something, or needing a little more one on one time with a sibling or mom and dad. Those are usually the major foundational reasons behind extra big emotions or attitudes or any of that. This helps all of us adjust, right? So, like, if we start to see emotions or attitude or something shift, we usually check those boxes. Is it sleep? Is it diet? Is it exercise? Have we been go, go, go? Do we need to do more one on ones? Like all of those things. And it really does help us recalibrate our household. And a lot of times we do a reset. So I've told my friends sometimes they'll be like, "Hey, can so and so have a sleepover?" And I'm like, "Nah, we're in reset mode." And they know what that means for me. It's like a lot of saying no, a lot of less excess of things and things to do and all of that. And it's just really getting back down to the basics of family time, spending time cooking together, spending time eating meals together, less go, 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 more just conversing and being simple. So that is also another thing that we do when it comes to them speaking their mind and it turns out to be in an aggressive way or turns out to be expressing their emotions and attitude. We also allow them to disagree with us. Okay. And we challenge them to come up with supporting evidence in times they disagree. So they can actually have a reason that they're disagreeing instead of just having attitude as to why they disagree. So again, this takes some patience as a parent, and you don't always have to debate with your children or have that. And I think that's feels like sometimes it hurts me because my kids are getting really good at providing supporting evidence and providing a solid negotiation that it does make it hard to raise your kids sometimes. But I think in the end, when they grow older, they're definitely going to be capable. So those smart ones are hard. But let me give you an example of like what I mean by the disagreement. So one time my kiddo started talking to me about politics. I think he learned this from somebody about one of the presidents. And I challenged him on why he thought that way or like what made him think that this president was a certain way. And all he could share was a thing or two that he learned from one of his peers or invalid sources. So we had a conversation about sources and valid sources. And it opened up for discussion on actually formulating a solid opinion before debating and telling him that it's okay to not have an opinion if he doesn't have solid enough evidence or reason or support to back the opinion. Because if you're just giving opinions, unsolicited opinions about things and you're acting passionate about them, but then have no evidence behind them, then It's silly. That's the only other word I have for it, guys. It's silly. But as I get older, I do believe we will start practicing more healthy debates just for fun. And right now, we like looking up like conundrums on YouTube and discussing what everyone thinks and why. So it makes for a fun time if you haven't already and you want to start discussions with your kids just to spark conversation, even at the dinner table. Kids also learn to listen and respect other people's opinions and thoughts and differing opinions as well. So if you haven't tried, you can start at Astronova Conundrums on YouTube. It's a super fun place to start, and they'll just come up with, a random question like, what would you do in this scenario? And then everybody goes around, and it's so fun to get to know the differences between your kids and their opinions and their supporting evidence behind their opinions and why they think that way. And if you have multiple children, you'll start to really understand how different your kids are and how different they think, but also all of it's valid. So it's really fun and you get to speak to your kids on different levels. So with that being said, we'll talk about the celebrating the differences of each individual kid. And this is all part of letting them have a voice, right? All the kids are so different, and we really try to emphasize the differences between them being a uniqueness for each of them, and that it's a positive thing and that it's okay we embrace it because, again, with one of my older kids, very into sports, a good athlete. My husband and I love sports, like, that is starting to turn into, like, his thing, like, he loves it, but my second son, that's not quite his thing, so, I think there was a lot of pressure there for him to want to like the same things, and so we're really trying to celebrate the uniqueness of his own abilities and the things that are different with him, and really empower him to do the things that he enjoys and stay mindful of those things that are good for him, just like my older son is with sports. So we really try to be mindful of that. And also the importance of autonomy and self expression for mental health, particularly after experiencing limited autonomy during lockdowns. And again, my kids were so young then, but I think kids are so capable. So letting them gain self-esteem and feel capable by being able to make their own decisions and figure out things on their own is huge. So again, back to the things like navigating an airport, or we also do things like sending the kids to the store to purchase their ingredients and they come home and make it. And they're just so capable. And I think as a parent, it can feel like an anxiety attack at first, but the only way to cope with that is to really just teach your kids how to handle it so that you can feel like you can believe in them and their abilities. Because I think once I started believing that my kids, oh, they're capable of riding their bike and going to the store and grabbing the ingredients and asking somebody for help. And in an emergency, they can handle this, or in this emergency, they can make this decision. It gave me a little more peace in allowing them a little bit more autonomy as they've gotten older. And again, I want them to be capable and I want them to feel confident in what they're able to do without me. It's hard as a parent. It's so hard because, again, it can be an anxiety attack. The world sometimes can feel like an evil place, but the more capable they are, it's surprising how much more secure you feel as a parent when you are pushing them past those limits. And obviously, patience is key, and you have to be in an environment where you feel instinctually good and have time and feel safe as well. The final thing is we really focus on leading by example with these 5 things above as well, and we are not perfect people. So all 5 of these things, like the saying goes, you are who you hang with. So if we as parents can lead them with these principles, then likely they will subconsciously adapt and do the same, and it'll be more a subconscious habit for them. This also means that my husband and I really need to keep in check as to how we are feeling and also how we stay social with people who fuel us and limit our screen time and do hard things and fail and learn faster and harder in front of them and stand up for and listen to our own voice as well. So we really, as much as I say we try to foster this with our kids, like him and I have worked really hard to try to do this for ourselves as well. And we have fun with this. It's hard work, but it's also really, really fun because we enjoy the whole game of it, right? So, this is it. These are the 5 things I try to be mindful and intentional about to foster positive mental health in our household. And even with all of this, guys, I know this has been a little bit of a long one. We really have no idea how our kids will turn out. That's part of the joy, but also sometimes the true fear in it. Being a parent is tough enough. So I'm hoping that you can give yourself as parents, if you are a parent, or give any parent for that matter, and children, a little grace from time to time as everyone's trying to learn. And I hope that by sharing my ideas and things that we do, it can help to encourage you to also dig in, to follow what worked for you, whether you're a parent, a teacher, an aunt, a peer, to just be intentional about what your kids or family or youth around you needs. So, all right, everyone, raise your water bottles, your iced coffee, your protein shake or rosé or whatever beverages you have in hand right now, and let's just cheers to working together to raise a mentally healthy generation as we are all in this together, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening, and I'm wishing all of you the best this week. Until next time. Well, my friends, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Work Better podcast. I hope you've wrapped up your golden nugget and take it with you on your journey to finish out the week. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, leave a review, or reach out to me personally if you have any special requests for guests or questions you'd like me to share on the show. In the meantime, I'll be over here rooting for you. Until next time.